Absolutely. So I'm Katie Intrader. I am Vice President of Business Development here at Tower Data. I've now been at the company for 8 years, which is crazy. And prior to that, I was actually an email marketer myself.
Awesome. And I'm Kelly Lawrence. I'm with Active Prospect. I am the team industry lead for our consumer packaged good, retail, and media verticals here. Prior to Active Prospect, which I've been at the company for about a year, I was working in lead generation at performance marketing agencies with enterprise level brands, managing their campaigns to help them acquire new prospects to their email list. And for any of those that are unfamiliar with Active Prospect, just a little bit about us. We're a SaaS solutions provider that helps companies automate data collection and delivery more securely and effectively, and offers compliance solutions to document proof of express consent on acquisition campaigns.
Awesome. So I wanted to thank you both again for joining us. Just a couple of quick housekeeping things that I forgot to mention before intros. So this is all recorded. We're going to be providing the full recorded session in the next couple of days, either tomorrow or on Monday. So keep your eyes out for that, along with a few additional materials. So feel free just to sit back, listen. If you have questions, we're going to be addressing them at the end. So feel free to use the little question module within your GoToWebinar control panel, I guess. So I know when everyone registered, we had you answer a quick question. And we were asking, do you personalize your holiday email campaigns? And not surprisingly, I was actually very thrilled to see that over 50% of the registrants today said yes, that you personalize your holiday email campaigns. So congrats to everyone for doing that. I'm very proud of everyone. So going from this, I want to ask Kelly and Katie, do you have any thoughts on this sort of metric that we're starting with personalization for holiday email campaigns?
Yeah, well, so first off, for those of you who answered no or yes, but you don't do it every year, don't worry, you're not alone. Most marketers say that personalization is really important to them, but there's very few that actually employ personalization in their email tactics. So just to give some stats to give weight to just how essential personalization is. So 91% of consumers say that they are more likely to shop with brands that provide offers and recommendations that are relevant to them. 71% of consumers say that they feel frustrated when they're having shopping experiences that are impersonal. And then lastly, 83% of consumers say that they're actually willing to share more of their data with a company in order to create a more personalized experience.
Yeah, so I think, even the largest brands in my experience that we've worked with aren't using that full toolkit. But today our goal is to give you some tips and sort of tangible steps that you can take to make your holiday campaigns a success. And those steps include, cleaning, enhancing, and optimizing your existing data. And we are going to kind of walk through each one for you here shortly.
Yeah. And the way we're going to do that actually is with a couple of poll questions throughout. So I'm going to post the first one now. Feel free, take a couple of seconds to answer the question, but it's around database cleaning. So question being, do you typically clean your email database before sending holiday campaigns? So again, take a couple seconds, click yes, no. How about you guys, Kelly and Katie? Do you have experience with cleaning lists outside of being on the data side or the B2B lead gen side?
Katie, I'll let you take that one since you've been on the deployment side.
Yeah, I mean, as an email marketer, it was incredibly important to make sure before the holidays that those emails were clean and deliverable, and also just throughout the year as well. But I think it's imperative during the holiday season too.
Nice.
Yeah,
and it's totally normal if you don't. But
yeah, one thing I can say on my side is, and we'll talk about this a little bit further on just throughout today's chat, but is that it can really affect, deliverability and inboxing to have bad data in your system. So, we'll be chatting about the effects that that can have and the benefits to just keeping that list clean.
Awesome. So it looks like 36% of our friends today said that they do typically clean their email database, and 64% do not clean their email database. So going from that, I'd love to hear a little more feedback on what to do, how to clean your data, why it's important, etc., from my friends here, Kelly and Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always love stats. So on average, we typically see that about 8.4% of email addresses in a company's database are either invalid, misspelled, or fake. And then I know personally here at Active Prospect, a lot of our customers are looking to employ more tools to help them mitigate fraud and bots, which seem to be something that's increasing at the point of acquisition when emails are making it into the database. So, the last thing you really want around the holiday season is subpar deliverability that's caused by, mailing to invalid or undeliverable email addresses. Because really at the end of the day, even if you put all the time and effort into having the best messaging, if that messaging isn't able to inbox, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Absolutely. And so, if you've got CRM contacts that you're not regularly engaging with, or maybe you haven't emailed them since last holiday period, you're definitely going to want to make sure that those emails are still good. And, validating the emails is going to improve your deliverability, reduce spam traps, bounce rates, and all of this is going to help with your inbox placement and reputation. And, we recommend real-time solutions. They're great right on your site to prevent bad data from reaching your CRM. So basically, if you're collecting emails for transactions themselves, if people are signing up for your loyalty program, or even if you're pulling in data from some of your lead generation partners, it's important to validate those emails right in real time. This is going to ensure that that data is clean and deliverable right from the get-go, so that that very first welcome message that you put in their inbox is going to make it there successfully. And we know that the holidays are right around the corner, and it's always better to be proactive versus reactive. I stole that from Kelly, but it's true. With cleaning, you don't want to get into a situation during the holiday period where you have any types of deliverability or reputation issues. So it's definitely important to get that validation up and live.
Right. Well, and validation is only one piece of that puzzle. So moving on real quickly to our next poll, you'll see where we're kind of headed. If you take a couple of seconds to answer, do you segment your holiday email lists based on key data such as age, life stage, purchase trends, etc.? I know that I'm not alone in being someone who's received what I can definitely tell is a blanketed general email message around the holiday season, or things that go to moms looking for things for their children. Have either of you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I feel like I've experienced that a lot, whether it's either the email message not resonating with me personally based off of like the data that I've provided to a company, or based off of my previous engagements with that company. I have found that I just get a blanketed email, or they may even be marketing through different channels, but not using those different channels to, employ key insights to understand that I've been engaging, in other means across those channels.
Definitely. All right, well, I'm going to close that one. It looks like everyone's pretty much voted. 82% of our audience today does segment their email database or based on these key data points. So awesome. I love seeing that stat. It makes a big difference. So with this in mind, since everyone does personalize to some extent, I wonder what are some of the ways that we can more strategically personalize content?
Yeah, so I think, it's important to really understand the consumer. Again, by using all of the data that consumer has given you and any insights that can be gleaned from their previous interactions with your company, whether that be on your website or with your marketing ads or your email. So even collaboration with the different marketing teams that you have, I think is really key. So that you can work collaboratively on the strategy. But consumers, I see particularly with COVID that they want to make sure that they feel heard. And there's also just been growing demand, I think, from consumers for marketers to take a more consumer-centric approach in their marketing messages, even when it comes to email. So they're looking for brands to really make their lives easy and make that shopping experience really easy, and also just inspire them with new ideas. So looking at things like, are they buying for themselves or are they buying as a gift giver? I think that's a really important thing to look at during the holiday season. So for example, that mom with kids who's married versus that single woman without kids living in a city, both could be potentially making the same purchase and buying a doll for a child, but only one is actually buying for their kid. So two very different audiences, very different goals, think very different content and imaging that they're going to be engaging with. So being able to take that personalized approach and understanding your audience and what messaging is really going to resonate with them is important.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm thoroughly impressed with everybody on the webinar that the majority of people are using personalization. I mean, I think personalization and segmentation go sort of hand in hand. And it's really critical to bring this data enhancement in within your email campaigns so that you can get the right content, the right product, the right offering in front of the right customer. So just like Kelly said, even if they're buying that same doll, the content in the email that you send to a mom with kids is going to be completely different than, a single woman living in the city buying for her niece. Kind of another great example, which you can simply bring in one demographic field and have a huge impact. So Ann Taylor Loft, we did a project for them a few years back, and it really is a brand that works for all ages. And what they did is they did a simple age range append, and they put the exact same outfit on an age appropriate model, and they sent that out. So, the same outfit is sent to me with somebody closer to my age, and the same outfit sent to my mom, and somebody closer to her age. And the ROI and conversions were, increased dramatically, and there was a lot of success there. So I think it's important to sort of use that demographic data to bring in dynamic content or images, and it's going to have a really big impact on your email marketing campaigns.
Absolutely. And so just as a rule of thumb, we mentioned don't send blanketed emails. I think that's the main rule, is just don't send blanketed emails across the board to consumers. As I mentioned, we've all experienced this. And email can be a really effective channel, I think, if done correctly. I found another really interesting stat that was about, email generating an ROI of about $42 for every single dollar spent. And studies show that when you apply personalization to that, you can increase that ROI by about $20 per every dollar spent, so an additional $20 for that personalization that's put in place. So a couple things, I think, just to make it easy to implement any type of personalization if you're not doing it today. I know majority of you said you are, but if you're not, a couple things that you could do is, if you don't have this data, like the data Katie was mentioning with age-specific range, you can pull it in. So using different services like Tower Data, like Active Prospect, or you can ask consumers on your website as well. So I've seen that be a growing trend of just asking consumers what the reason is for visiting your website. That can capture data on them. And I've also seen companies employing surveying, so going out and actually asking their customers what they want to see from them or why they're interested in them. And then also employing behavioral triggers is another really easy way to start to personalize your messaging. So what that means is, taking insights from specific events or interactions that that consumer has had with you previously, and then tying in automated email responses to those things. So, abandoned cart, welcome messages, rewarding people for making a purchase with another, potential incentive for them to come back and keep shopping. Again, people want that experience to be easy, so the easier you can make it on them, the more revenue you're going to see from your email campaign.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so another kind of rule of thumb that we came up with is just this idea of having a consistent message that's communicated across channels. And this is going to help you optimize that sort of omni-channel performance. So whether you're sending a direct mail piece, within a postcard, or you're sending an email, you definitely want to make sure that that message is clear and complementary across all channels. And I think that's especially important, during COVID. I think it's an opportunity during the holidays to, make sure that, people are home now, but they're shopping online way more than they were before. So you can use that physical mailbox to get their attention, but bring them back online.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. So going into the last section of this discussion, we've talked about validating your database, making sure everything's clean, and then adding in these sort of personalization points, whether it's age, location, etc. We have all of that great data, but the last piece we need to make sure we know is active versus inactive. So my last quick poll for everyone, for our audience today: can you confidently today identify active versus inactive contacts in your database? Do you have the ability to do this somehow? Either yes or no. If not, no worries. If you do, that's awesome. Katie and Kelly have a few points here, but it's always an interesting discussion because I think we focus so much on finding the differentiators, like you were talking about, Katie, with the Ann Taylor Loft example. So even just having that simple age differentiator is great, but if we're sending those emails and someone's inactive, what do we do?
Definitely.
We'll give everyone just a few more seconds to answer. Ooh, it's shifting back and forth. We'll see how this goes.
I know, it's funny, I see a lot from our customers of people who are doing this, a lot of like post accept, once a consumer has already come into the funnel, they might clean their database or try and activate their database, thereafter. Lists get stale, they send it out maybe to like a third-party company to do some like scrubbing.
Yeah.
So I am seeing a shift in demand to people wanting to apply more real-time verification and have a real-time activation strategy to really get the most out of their list.
Yeah, it's important, and I'm glad that more people are recognizing the importance. So I'm going to close this poll real quick now. It looks like it's almost split down the middle. 44% of our audience today say they can confidently identify active versus inactive, and 56% say that they cannot at this point in time. So Katie and Kelly, I'm going to set this up for you real quick. We're going to go down two different routes. One here, when you're looking for ways to analyze your data and figure out the next steps to scale, you have really two options. So the first being identifying your inactive list in order to send a re-engagement campaign before the holidays hit. And the second option being adding more people to your list to gain more value in the holiday season. So Katie, I think you're going to be able to speak a little bit more to the first one today. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, re-engaging your existing universe is a tactic that I don't think enough, companies do. And so first step in that is to identify, that segment that you consider to be inactive. Is it 3, 6, 12 months without opening, without clicking? It's really however you choose to define it. And then taking that subset, and you can actually run it for a month last open flag. So this is going to tell you who within that universe of yours is opening and engaging other places, but maybe not engaging with you. And so what you can do is you can warm up those contacts with a discount, with different content, something to grab their attention and try and win them back as an engaged customer. And this is important to do before the holiday period, because it is always a lot more cost effective to re-engage previously organically opted in leads than it is to generate net new leads. I mean, we all know that there is cost associated with it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you can kind of step one, look at your existing universe, see who you can win back, and then step two, Kelly is going to walk you through how do you add new customers and prospects into your email database.
Thanks, Katie. So with adding new prospects into your database, I see that a lot of companies rely on inbound strategies. So they're doing a lot of TV or impression-based or click-based campaigns, and getting new prospects through search or social. And those are great ways, because those are really going to be your highest intent consumers that you're going to get to your website. But there's also a whole universe out there of publishers and other performance-based channels across social as well as major media platforms like Google that really excel in lead generation and work with brands to add incremental growth to their email list. So this can really help companies build an owned audience that in a very scalable and cost-effective and also predictable way, where they know for every single dollar spent, they're going to get X amount of new subscribers in return, that they can then activate on during peak holiday seasons. So obviously I'm a little biased coming from like the lead generation industry, that this is a great channel. But if done correctly and really using like the right tools for those type of programs to bring in high quality leads into the funnel, and also block bad leads and bad data from ever making it through into your email database, it can really be a great source for driving predictable growth for hitting sales and revenue goals that you might have around the holiday season, particularly if your business is seasonal.
Yeah, and then, what about those people that are interested in your brand that you don't know? So there is a technology that exists that will allow you to identify those anonymous visitors that are coming to your site. And so you can actually get their contact information and re-engage them with relevant offers based on their site engagement and their behavior on the site. What were they clicking on, looking at, what did they put in their cart and leave behind? And so typically about 10 to 20% of the time that anonymous traffic can be identified. And this is another really great way to build up your existing email database, especially during the holiday period where you're probably going to get more eyeballs on your site. This is a really imperative time to get that up and running so you can catch those people and keep them in the list, in the funnel, and sort of actively engaged with your brand throughout the next year.
Yeah. No, and I think it's interesting too, as this technology becomes more available. I know there were a few niche companies who used it previously, but it'll be interesting to see how it expands across industries. I know, for example, it's very popular within retail right now, but it'll be fun to see what other industries use it and how it goes for them. But so as of right now, we've covered cleaning your database, segmentation, personalization, and then what to do to re-engage or generate new leads within your database. So we've covered all those three. Now it's time to answer a few questions if you ladies are up for it. I have a couple of them. The first one is, do you have any recommendations for nonprofits driving donations versus businesses driving purchases, and how to best market? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think with nonprofits, it's it's a totally different message. I mean, I myself am involved in a cancer charity. I literally was on a call this morning for it. You know, it's different. The content, you know, you're not going to have as many tools and offers and things to put in front of them like you would as a business. But I think there still is value. We work with nonprofits all the time in understanding who that person is that you're reaching out to, and even tailoring the whatever the cause is based off of that, you know, individual's age range. Are they married with kids? You know, if it's for pediatric cancer or if it's for homelessness, whatever it may be, you know, there is still value in sort of understanding the demographics of that individual so that you can convey your charity's mission in a way that's going to resonate with that individual better.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's interesting too. I know for sure that sometimes political groups too even will ask and and make sure that their message, if they're asking for a donation or if they're asking to help out with calling, etc. It's interesting to see because they're technically not for profit, but it's a little bit different. But it's still tailoring that message based on age range. Um, Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of tools that I've seen out there too to, you know, pull in some data on who these consumers are to help make like informed decisions on potentially what messaging they might want to see from you. But I usually see from working with nonprofits that they take, you know, two-pronged approach in working their subscriber list versus their donor list and how they approach the messaging around those two things. I think it takes a little bit of a softer approach on some of the people who are email subscribers versus previous donors, where you can go directly to them with maybe a donation ask pending the last time that they donated to your organization. But around email, using some of those, just as Katie said, the demographic data, but also intent data of just how engaged they are with your emails or how engaged they might be with your site. And then even tracking those KPIs through the funnel of, you know, from the messaging that you're starting to deploy to them, how engaged are those people, and maybe segmenting out the database even further based off of that engagement rate, where somebody who's highly engaged might be more inclined to potentially donate or start to get more engaged with the cause versus somebody who maybe is unengaged. So hitting them with a very hard ask might be difficult or off-putting potentially.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all about kind of figuring out what's going to work for who. And I don't think there's any like silver bullet with it. I would say that some of it's trial and error, and some of it's thinking about like your position versus someone you may know, etc. But it's an interesting question. Following up, similar but not completely. Well, is there anything that you foresee with the impact of COVID from last year? So any practices, there was a big digital shift last year for marketing. Are there any practices from last year's sort of holiday marketing that you see carrying over into this year where stores are open and maybe have a bit more foot traffic? How can email marketers handle that?
Katie, I know we were talking about this actually, I think the other day we were chatting about COVID and how that's affected marketing and particularly email marketing. I know you're talking about digital and everything, so I don't know if you want to start there.
Yeah, we can. I mean, I mentioned it prior, but I think that just the idea of the getting in front of the getting in front of the customer in whichever channel you think is going to work best. So for some, it's going to be email, but our email inboxes are incredibly cluttered right now. So that's when, like I mentioned, a lot of my e-commerce and retail clients are moving towards that sort of postcard situation, which allows you a discount whether you go in store if you're comfortable, some people are not, or going online. And so I think it's just kind of a matter of utilizing multiple channels, and making sure that you engage with your customers in whatever channel they're most comfortable in.
Mm-hmm. I am seeing a big uptick in SMS, and I think we're seeing that across the board. But I know for myself personally, my email inbox is very cluttered, and so I'm usually looking at text messages. Companies that are that I'm opting into receive text messages from, I'm highly engaged with. So if that's a channel that's at your disposal and maybe one to think about leveraging and how you can couple that with your email programs. I also think just around content that people, as I mentioned previously, are looking for you to kind of be empathetic to the state of the world and what they might be going through and what their particular needs are. So when developing your strategy, really thinking about what these people might be wanting to see from you, and that might again be a softer ask from them to make a purchase or be more thoughtful around how you're positioning your products. So not being as forceful with products, but more focused around what the consumer might want. And then I think we've all seen from TV ads, community tends to be a really big thing that is still trending, and I don't think that's going anywhere. So if you can incorporate, community into any of the content that you're pushing out to people, I think we're going to see that continues to be successful here in 2021.
I think that makes sense. Well, and speaking of community, I have one last question for you that's sort of related and sort of not, but you're trying to reach your community, right? So what if someone were having deliverability issues and they were trying to address them throughout the summer, and they still aren't completely resolved? So with the steps that we discussed today, or maybe something additional, how would someone who's having deliverability issues approach holiday marketing this year?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start on this one. I think first and foremost, you're going to want to take those emails and get them cleaned. You definitely are going to want to validate, make sure that you are catching any spam traps, any other, fat fingering that may have come in when somebody was maybe typing their email in store. You definitely are going to want to clean those up. And then it is always important to monitor the subject line, the copy within your email, because a lot of times that information might potentially get flagged as spam or junk. So you definitely are going to want to make sure that you're kind of monitoring the content that goes out and that you're cleaning your emails and your database as well, and kind of doing those in parallel, I think are going to definitely prevent you from having any deliverability issues throughout the holiday.
Yeah, and depending on the size, I think, of your company, if there's maybe certain IPs that, if you're sending from a range of IPs and you can identify where, if there's particular ones that might be affecting your deliverability more than others. I know there are tools out there that can help monitor your email reputation. So I agree with Katie full-heartedly on how to look at this as you go into the holiday season. And if you are having deliverability issues, something to potentially consider is proactively implementing front-end validation so that you're not getting hard bounces on your emails or people who might be flagging your emails as spam. So ensuring that you've gotten that consent from the consumer to be emailing them. I think those are important, proactive things to do to ensure the hygiene of your list and that you're able to get those emails inboxed.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to think about is figuring out, which source those emails are coming in from that may be causing the problem, because your website might be collecting emails in a sort of clean manner, but maybe you've got, one of your lead generation partners is not doing the best job. And so that's fine. You can always optimize and add validation into that mix, or they may be doing a great job, but the in-store situation, like I mentioned, is where those bad emails are coming from. So I think identifying the source is also a really important factor as well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, those are all the questions I have for you, ladies. I want to thank you again for your time today. And just a note to the audience, as always, if there's anything you'd like to discuss further, you can feel free to reach out to Active Prospect or Tower Data. Katie and Kelly's information will be available to you again in the next couple of days. There's also a quick survey at the end of this, so if you want to take that, feel free. We'd really appreciate it. But thank you again, ladies. I appreciate everything today. It was great.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Katie. And thank you, everybody, for joining and taking time out of your day. We appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.